Story. So welcome everybody tonight. I'm really proud to have my PhD advisor at TU Wien, and he will tell us something about the moon. He was always reaching for the stars, yeah? And I think his career shows that even civil engineers can sometimes do something more than just building houses, maybe some moon villages. In the end, Jan was president of TU Darmstadt for how many years? 12 years, more than a decade. Then he changed position to the German
Aerospace
Agency, DLR, Deutsches Zentrum für Luft- und Raumfahrt. And after that, he was a CEO or how
Director General.
Director General, DG.
DG,
exactly. Director General at the ESA, European Space Agency, which is not a European institution. I learned that from you.
It's European, but not of the EU.
Not of the EU,
yeah.
Because also Canada, for example, is a member.
For instance, yeah.
Yes. And yeah, that was an interesting career, especially because, like I said, starting as a civil engineer with some Massivbau, yeah,
concrete structures, and masonry, yeah.
You seems to be very conservative, but Jan always was reaching for the stars. Always had great visions, and this vision is already some years old, I believe. You told me today that this is many years. I saw some of it some years ago. I'm really proud that you made it to Vienna tonight, and you see the audience is large, so there's a lot of interest in this. Because maybe now the Moonvillage is more on the topic than it used to be. So thanks for coming, and I'm looking forward to the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rector Schneider, dear Jens. So we have more than just a special relation. We are really friends since a long time. And so I'm very happy that I was invited to come here to say a little bit, no, not only a little bit, to say really something more about Moonvillage. And normally when I'm talking about space, Moonvillage, maybe 3 or 4 slides, and that's all. Now today I have the opportunity, you can leave earlier if you like, but I have the opportunity to talk really a full variety of aspects of the Moonvillage. So let's start and let's have a look what is really behind it. Humans looked to space in former days. So looked to space and said, okay, there is something in space, and with astronomy, they could really understand that we have stars. They even understood that there is something moving, which is not automatically understood, and that we are not the sun is moving around us, but we are moving around the sun. And then very early, and you can see that in literature or in movies, sometimes the visions are already said before an engineer tries to realize it. So it was in 1929, there was a movie, Woman in the Moon. And the interesting thing of this movie is, it was the invention of countdown. You know that whenever there is a launch, at least in the Western Hemisphere, not in Russia, there is a countdown, 10, 9, 8, and so on, back until there is a launch. This was invented in that movie because Fritz Lang, when he decided about this movie, he said, we have to do something before the launch because this time has to be filled with something. So he invented the countdown, which is now used. So this was very early beginning to fly to the moon. And there were others. Jules Verne said, let's fly to the moon. There was Peterchens Mondfahrt. I don't know how to translate that because that's very special. So Peter's trip to the moon is not a good translation. So therefore, that was one, and then there was also sex on the moon. So in literature, in movies, the moon was always playing an important role. But before that, we had to have some steps in space which we have to develop. So I was 3 years old, now you know how old I am, when Sputnik was launched. My father took me on his arm and said, look, Jan, there is Sputnik. I did not see anything, but if your father tells you something when you are 3 years old, you have something, you see something. And this was the starting point that I said, okay, space is for me fascinating. Also, as Jens mentioned right, the rector mentioned rightly, I did not go to space, but I studied civil engineering. So this was a very early step. And of course, the Americans were really impressed. After that, and you might have heard about the right-hand side of this slide, Laika, a small dog. Unfortunately, she died during the ascent already. She was really in space. She died before. The Americans sent some monkeys into space. They survived. And also the Russians, the Soviet Union, sent some more dogs which survived. And Europe, what did Europe do at that time? They sent a small cat into space. Félicette. There's a very special story. You heard about Woman on the Moon. Now there's another story with females and males over here. Originally, a tomcat called Felix should be the first European animal in space. But on the day of the launch, he disappeared. So they had to have some other brave animal to take the journey, and this was Félicette. She survived, and if you looked over here, you see something strange. It's not a bad picture. There were some sensors in the brain to measure the sensor, measure the brain. This cat survived and lived also several years afterwards without any trouble. But then John F. Kennedy said in 1961, we would like to bring a man to the moon and return him safely to Earth. A man, he said, by the way, a man. Which is one of the aspects which I will cover later on again. So the moon, so fly to the moon within less than 10 years. That was really a challenge. And that was the starting point of Space 2.0. With the trip to the moon, there are some people you should know. Hopefully you know this one. Somebody knows? Yuri Gagarin, right. The first man or person in space surrounding the Earth. The first American in space was not John Glenn, but Alan Shepard, not known so far as the first one, but he made just a parabolic flight, so he came back without orbiting the Earth. The first American in space orbiting the Earth was John Glenn. And this is Alexei Leonov. Very important person. He was the first one leaving the capsule into the vacuum of space. Now, I hope you know the advertisement of the Michelin tires. You know, this body, this many tires in white. And this was exactly how he felt when he was outside the capsule, because in the vacuum, he blew up very big, into a big body, and he could not enter back into the capsule. That were traumatic minutes, and the problem was that they were afraid because if you're orbiting the Earth, you have sunshine and you have total darkness within minutes. So therefore they were very afraid, but he made the one and only solution. He opened the valve, so the air was disappearing. He had no air to breathe, but he could enter, and then he could breathe again. So he survived. And the Americans also sent some rovers on the moon. First rover, Lunar Gateway, and they also brought things back from the moon. So it's not only the Americans, but also the Soviet Union. And then the program in the US started with Gemini, Mercury, and Apollo. In the first Apollo 1, 3 men died in the capsule because of a very stupid mistake. And this is something one has to be aware of. They had pure oxygen in the capsule to breathe. That was the idea. That's fine. Nothing against it. It's a little bit dangerous because in pure oxygen, if there's any fire, it's over. Now, I don't know, and Piero might help me, what Klettband means in English. I have no idea. What? Velcro. Velcro. Yeah, the thing that yes. So this one, and this was not produced for this very special capsule. So it was normal. So it had some static electricity. And they had fixed several things in the capsule with that. And they were moving it, and then there was an ignition, and all three died in pure oxygen. So space is dangerous. Space is really dangerous. We have an amount of 1 to 3% of astronauts died in space. The number is different because it depends on how you count. But the Apollo program continued, and the first man on the moon was Neil Armstrong. He said, very famous sentence, because it's a small step, now listen, it's a small step for man, but a giant leap for mankind. This is what he said. NASA reported, so there is a NASA person who knows it. NASA reported, he said, it's a small step for a man, but a giant leap for mankind. So there is, in English grammar, it's a small difference. If you say it's a small step for man, it means it's a small step for mankind. So what he said was, it's a small step for mankind, it's a giant leap for mankind. That was what he said, but because he forgot the A. So tiny things. Okay, very famous picture, and it's a fake picture. And I will disclose that it is fake. This is the official picture NASA published afterwards. And what they did is, you see here the dark universe over here. The picture which was shot ended over here, directly here. But they thought there should be a little bit dark from the universe. So they put a small ribbon of darkness above it. So now why do I know it? Very simple. Because otherwise, the picture should show the antenna. There is no antenna over here. But they were on the moon. When I met the administrator of NASA, Mike Griffin, and we were only two persons, I said, Mike, now we are friends. Tell me, have you been on the moon? Just give me. I will not tell it to people. And he said, Jan, it would have been much more expensive to make all the people silent about a fake. Therefore, it was cheaper to go to the moon in reality. A good remark. By the way, what they said, it's very important. We came in peace for all mankind. Now they landed on the moon. And my question to you, if you know the answer, don't say it. But if you believe you know it, then you can say it. What was the nationality of the first flag on the moon? What do you think? Just give me. American. He says American. Everybody believes that. However, it was Swiss, not Austrian. It was Swiss, because that's the first flag on the moon. It was an experimental part which they used in order to measure the solar flare from the sun. And this was done on the moon even before they raised the American flag, minutes before, but it was the first one. So the first flag on the moon had a Swiss nationality. Now, they did a lot of things on the moon, some experiments, gathering things here, gathering there. Very important what they also did. This is Harrison Schmidt, geologist, who did some work. And you see here also a car, an electric car, 1969, 1970. So electric cars, 1972 in this case, electric car on the moon. And they brought back some material. They had some very special sample return behavior canisters, but some of them selected even bigger ones because they said it's so nice, we have to bring the whole stone back to Earth. This was the race in space with Apollo. After that, there was for several years nothing. But then Soviet Union and America understood that they should do something together. And so in 1975, they had a rendezvous and docking of American astronauts and Soviet astronauts, cosmonauts in space. And this is one of my pictures I like even most because it shows that cooperation, even during times of Cold War, is possible. Rede ich zu schnell für Sie? Klappt das alles? Alles klappt, alles gut, gut. Okay. So, therefore, this was step number 1, 1975. Now, we know Space 3.0 is now global cooperation and space applications with the International Space Station, with the Americans, with the Russians, not any longer Soviet Union today, but in JAXA, the Japanese, Europe, and Canada. And now we are moving to what is coming up, and I call it Space 4.0. Space 4.0 means a lot of things. Change of motivations, why to do space. It's different than to that what was done before, prestige and blah, blah, blah. It was really also some contents, Earth observation, blah, and something like that. Actors, we have so many spacefaring nations in the world, not only Soviet Union or Russia and America, but many, many spacefaring nations. The roles are different, what is done, the technologies, and you can go through the whole list, even with artificial intelligence and digitalization. Everything is now in space and is over there. At this time, we have to look into what is coming up. The ISS, the International Space Station, will come to an end, maybe in something like 5 years. And the question is, what do we need in future, and what can we do? So it's clear. We need something for humans, and we need something for robotics. We need a microgravity lab, for instance, also for medicine. We need research possibilities, opportunities, fundamental and also applied. Still, space is always inspiring. For me, it's also important that space has international activities, like 1975, the Rendezvous, Soyuz, Apollo, or the International Space Station. Science and development, springboard for future deep space travels, and so on and so on. And therefore, it's clear we need something after the ISS, which really covers all of these different activities. And therefore, I believe we need frequent Earth orbit activities, because in low Earth orbit, with the microgravity over there, you can do many tests, medicine, biology, material science, and so on. And we need also something like exploration, because exploration especially has a very strong power in order to bring together different nations. Therefore, both is necessary. And this is the starting point of the idea of the Moonvillage. But before I come to that, let's think about where to go. What would you say? Where to go? There are different opportunities. And the question is the next planet? And I believe we cannot say any ultimate goal, to say the ultimate goal is to go to blah, blah, blah. We don't know. Humans in the future may say, we can go even further. So therefore, this is an important message. And now I come to, for me, a rather sad situation. The physicist Stephen Hawking, he said, humans need to leave Earth or risk being annihilated by nuclear war or climate change. I'm not against any physicist, but I believe this is a very bad wording. That means to be ready to leave the Earth because we did everything dirty over here. That's not a good argument. We should, first of all, look to our Earth. But maybe, even within this room, there is 1 or 2 or 3 or 10 who say, that's a good idea. I would like to go. For these people, I have a solution. Go there. Go there. It's just 39 light years away. That means you send with your iPhone or whatever you have a message, I'm coming, and it takes only 78 years until you get the response, stay where you are. So, but anyhow, if you want to go there, it's an interesting place. It's called TRAPPIST-1. This system has about 7 planets. You know that we have here in our solar system 8 or 9, depending how you count Pluto. And in our case, I don't know whether you know about the distances between the different parts. So to the sun, it's about 150 million kilometers from here. Between this 150 million kilometers, we have Mercury and Venus. If we go far in the other direction, we have Mars, closest distance, something like 60 million kilometers. Then we have Jupiter, 650 million kilometers, so far away. So all our planets in our solar system are far away from each other. But in this system, the planets are much closer. Not as close as in this picture, but rather close. And astronomers thought that these different planets would have to interact with each other. Because they are too close, the gravity would change their orbiting around the sun, their sun. And for that purpose, it was, or for that reason, people were thinking about how can it really exist. Now, you wanted to hear something about the moon, I know, but you have to follow me this idea because it's for me too important. Now, there was a musician, not an engineer, not an astronomer. A musician took this solar system and looked to the orbiting frequency. So the orbiting frequency of the Earth would be 1 divided by 365 or 606, I don't mind, days. But frequency normally is counted in 1 per second, so you have to divide further on by 24 hours per day, by 60 minutes per hour, by 60 seconds per minute. So you come to a very, very, very tiny frequency, right, for the Earth. So the same happens with that one, and the musician said, I want to hear frequencies, like I know 440 hertz is a nice tone and so on. So what he did, by the way, I don't know whether it was a he or a she, but anyhow, what this person did, multiplied the frequencies he calculated by 212 million, just in order that you can hear it. Just in order, and now I hope you can hear it. I didn't test it before. So now the first, yes, it works. So the first planet, okay? Listen to the tone. Second one, I make only 3. I stop after 3. So those of you who are acquainted with music understood that these are not by accident or by coincidence any tone. These are harmonic distances. And these harmonic distances is stabilizing this solar system. So it's not important for the moon, but maybe important for you, because interdisciplinary, that's the issue I wanted to mention over here. But let's go back. So people believe, let's go to the Mars. Huh? Many people, some stupid people. Okay, let's go to Mars. However, look to Mars. To go to the moon and back is possible even in summer break. It takes 1 week, so it's very fine. To go to Mars takes you 2 years. 6 months go there, and you can't go back because of the different orbiting situation of Mars and Earth. So you have to stay, and then you can come back, so overall 2 years. Is there somebody in this room who knows that he or she will have no serious thickness within the next 2 years? That's the question. I wish as well. But to be sure is a different thing. And we have strong radiation over there. Communication is much more difficult than in the case of Apollo to the moon. So I believe sometime humans will go to Mars, but it will take time and it will not happen right now. Therefore, let's go to the moon. Now again, the moon, in movies, many different movies, the moon was shown. For instance, Alpha, moon-based Alpha, they even had one where Nazi survived on the far side of the moon, which is not the dark side of the moon. The far side is as bright as the near side. So, but anyhow, so there were always some ideas, and so I was discussing about distances. To go from the moon to Earth or back is about just 300,000, 400,000 kilometers per hour. And the moon most probably was developed through an impact of another planet, the planet called Theia, towards the Earth, the early Earth, and then the moon was formed. And by that accident, one can say that the moon is very similar to the Earth because it has a lot of parts of materials the Earth has as well. Now, I could go through all of this, but not important right now. You see it's much smaller than the moon. The gravity isn't important. It's about 1/6 of that what we have on Earth. And you know that it takes about 28 days to have to go around the Earth. And by the way, the movement of the moon himself is, of course, very clear because it shows always the same face to us. So it takes exactly the same time to move around the own axis as it takes to move around the Earth, and therefore we always see the same part of the moon. The moon has, and this is new, I mean, when I started to really propose more moon activities, I got the message, it was in the early days when I was at the German Aerospace Center, don't go to the moon, it's just a stone. It's just a stone without anything. Now we know it has a hot core, it has iron in the core, it has very thin crust. The crust is thinner on the side towards the Earth than towards the outer part. So it is an interesting thing. It has moonquakes, it has water and everything. And then the Americans suddenly announced, back to the moon. Mike Pence, the former vice president of the United States, announced, let's go back to the moon. I met him in Washington, and I said, Mr. Vice President, I know you know everything, and I'm just a stupid civil engineer. But if you can get a recommendation from my side, I would never say back to the moon. That means you did it already, you try it again. That's not really logical. So therefore, let's talk about going forward to the moon. And this should be a different approach. It should be an approach with all mankind. You remember what they said when they landed first time on the moon. So therefore, I said, yes, let's go there. And in a conference in Colorado Springs, which takes place each and every year, I announced, let's have a multi-partner open concept for the moon. And I had a long discussion with a journalist and explained him everything. It should be international, it should be human and robotic, it should be private, public and private, it should be exploration, pioneering, outreach, STEM, you know, science, technology, engineering, and math. The A I put in for any other subject, because as you heard, music is also part of it. So let's think about STEAM. Moon science, cosmology, you can read yourself. And therefore I said, that's what I want to do. And then this journalist said, yeah, it's not bad, the idea, but the wording is bad. Nobody will understand what it means, multi-partner open concept. You have to have a better name. And that was the day when we created the word of Moonvillage. Now, this Moonvillage is now really something which more or less exists, and I also announced and proposed free and open access. You know, we have in Germany, we have some tradition with walls. And I don't want to have new walls on the moon. So it should be free and open access to everybody from what country ever. The Americans were a little bit shocked. That's in the American TV. European Space Agency eyes future Moonvillage. And you see her face that she was a little bit more than just surprised. And Elon Musk, the name you might know, have you heard about it? I don't know. But Elon Musk said, okay, let's go to the moon, Moonbase Alpha. You remember the movie I showed you? It was also Moonbase Alpha. So this was what he announced in 2017. He said, yes. And another guy, you know, was Jeff Bezos. He said, city on the moon. Americans a little bit bigger than just the Europeans. However, this year, some weeks ago, in Australia, the current NASA administrator, Sean Duffy, said, America aiming for permanent village on the moon. I was very lucky, very happy that now also NASA sees that this is an important step. There was also some more information about the idea of NASA. This slide, for instance, which shows some impression how it can be done. When I was thinking about the village, I was thinking about another village. And this village, by the way, I did not find a better resolution. But anyhow, you can understand what it is. And there you can understand what a village means. A village means there are diverse interests. Some are singing some songs, others are having some stones, and so on and so on. So we have diverse actors, diverse activities, even diverse calendars, but joint understanding and cooperation in a village. And therefore, the Moonvillage should be something like that. It should be an open concept, as I mentioned earlier, not a single project, not a plan to start here and stop there, like a project. Normal project has some start and has some end. No, it should not be fully regulated installation. This is one which is for me very important. I'm not looking for any regulation to define the Moonvillage. That would be the end. No fixed cooperation scheme means everybody, companies, institutions can go there and join. And there is no fixed cooperation. We need to have a little bit, we have to take care of, for instance, of launching sites, that there is no danger for people close to that. Not a defined timetable, open architecture, international community, this is for me very important. And interfaces, for instance, for electricity or so, only where needed. And that means we have to connect and collect the stakeholders. We have to see some planetary regulations, because planetary protection, not to put waste on the moon. We have enough on Earth, so we should not start again. And peaceful purpose, very important for me. What we did together with Piero, we collected offers and requests from different players. Some people were saying, we need to have this and that, electricity, blah, blah, blah. Others said, we are offering electricity, blah, blah, blah. So we did this. We're looking for partnering, and we defined also interfaces. That means we have a diversity of instruments, for instance, traditional projects as ESA or NASA are doing. We have public-private partnership projects. Crowdfunding could be possible. Open concepts, shareholder projects, turnkey projects, and diversity of roles. And then in 2017, as I said, we collected really organizations being interested into the Moonvillage, and we got about 60 signatures at that time. And this was the declaration of interest they signed to consider the Moonvillage desirable, to embrace the Moonvillage as an objective, to endeavor as an open platform, to seek cooperation with other entities, to be willing to share plans and ideas. So very fundamental signatures we got, and therefore we have these numbers. The question is, where are we and why to go to the moon? The moon has water on the surface. This is from NASA. So they measured that there is water, and there is even the idea that we have under the crust of the moon that we have even more water. So there is some hope and some interesting thing, because using, for instance, water, we can, of course, also produce hydrogen and oxygen for launchers. So that could be also an interesting aspect. There are some discussions on how to investigate caverns under the crust. There are some plans. There was already something, and I believe that also the question of recycling is an interesting point. In Apollo 12, the astronaut visited Surveyor 3 in 1969. And he took the camera of the Surveyor. But there is even more to find. I mean, we could recycle a lot of materials which are over there, the solar panels and others. Interesting enough, they brought back the camera to Earth, and they investigated the camera, and they found some virus. And they thought, oh, there is life on the moon. But then they checked it again, and it was the mechanics who built the camera. He had a cold. And this virus survived on the surface of the moon. So it was not from the moon, it was from Earth. But anyhow, the picture should show we have some things over there we can reuse. Another one is I have no better picture, I have to apologize, from the Apollo 17, the lower part and also the lower part of 13, 14, and so on are still, 13 not, 11, 12, 14, are still on the surface of the moon, so we can do something. And there are some cars. You only need a battery, then it's fine, or a wall box or so, to charge them again. There are some cars on the moon. So therefore, many institutions, also as ESA, are now thinking on what can we do on the surface of the moon. ESA has its own facility in Cologne for that, a facility where they are testing to really to move and to act on the surface of the moon. The Americans had a plan also very early in some more than 10 years ago and said, okay, what we can do is we can also pave roads. I'm afraid a little bit that they have then the same speed limit as in America. But anyhow, they are saying we can build some roads on the surface of the moon. And there is the idea to build with the material of the moon, on the far side of the moon, some objects where you can have a deep look into the universe, because you have no radiation from the Earth. You are really in the shadow of the moon. So an observatory on the far side of the moon would have a big chance to look deep into the universe. And by producing it out of material from the moon, it might be a good solution. If we are sending astronauts to the moon, and if they stay for longer than just for 2 or 3 or 4 days, then they should be also able to have their own food and develop food on the surface of the moon. And also some companies under the leadership of the European Space Agency decided or developed something like a moon-like initiative, Lunar Economy, which should have communication and navigation and communication also back to the Earth. Of course, there are also some dreamers doing mining on the surface of the moon. I'm not really in favor of that, only if they want to use it on the moon. But if they say, we bring it back to Earth, there was a discussion of helium-3, and so I believe this is bullshit. It's not so good, the idea. So I believe to use it on the surface of the moon is fine. To bring it back, I don't see a very special value. We have enough resources on the Earth. We should not go for that. But anyhow, there are people believing to do that. So when I proposed the Moonvillage, I got a lot of different emails. Some were asking to be the mayor of the village, and there was also a company from the northern part of Europe saying, we have the right houses for you. And they sent me this slide. So now, to go to the moon is an interesting thing, how to go there. The idea was, and this was my final signature as a Director General of ESA in 2021, that the European Service Module, together with Orion, the American capsule, should be a part to go to the moon. And therefore, the first astronauts to the moon are European, not American. I show you the two. It was launched with Artemis 1 in 2022. And here you see the 2 astronauts. German nationality, I have to say, at least this one. It's a doll. It's a female body, because in the effect of radiation, the female body and the male body is quite different. So, and there was not so many data from radiation on female bodies, so they prepared a body, a female body, and another one. And the difference between these two, this is Helga, this is Soha. This one has a cover to cover the radiation, to have something against the radiation. They were flying around the moon, but not real astronauts, just the 2. Now, the next step, and again, this was also signed by me in 2021, is the Lunar Gateway. The idea of the Lunar Gateway was, and still is, I hope, to have something like an outpost in an orbit around the moon, something like an ISS, but not the same, smaller, and also with commercial partners from where astronauts can descend to the surface of the moon, can control robots on the surface of the moon because you have no latency between the two places. And so Europe also signed up for several parts of this Lunar Gateway. Now we know there is, again, Elon Musk, who is building Starship, the tallest rocker ever built. This is Starship. This is the one which should bring astronauts under the NASA leadership. And this is also for cargo to the moon. These are Soviet Union, never built. And this is the rocket which was used for Apollo. So Elon Musk is building this rocket, and he believes we should not use the Lunar Gateway, but we should go directly to the surface of the moon. And this brings us some problems with the Gateway. There's a lot of money already invested in the Gateway, and I believe we should think about it. So the Gateway is nice. However, if it isn't used, then I would be very sorry. And therefore, I propose, and I say that also here, I propose not to forget about the Gateway. If it's not sent to the moon because of political situations in the US, then we should take the idea and all what is built already for the Gateway and bring it back to the Earth's orbit. Bring it back means it is not flying, so just to bring it to the Earth's orbit, so we could have a good substitution of the ISS for experiments in low Earth's orbit, and we could have the activities on the surface of the moon with Moonvillage on an international basis. So it would give two advantages, and following the logic I showed you earlier, post-ISS. It's exactly the idea to bring both ideas together. So what we can see is we have a reality going around the surface of our Earth in Earth's orbit. We have already some experience to go there. The vision is to build over there also the Moonvillage. There's even a Moonvillage association. And utopia is to go to Mars. I'm quite sure, even so, I see many problems. One day or the other, not Americans, but astronauts or people will also fly to Mars. But the question is, how will that happen and when will it happen? And therefore, what we can see is space is delivering fascination. Everybody is fascinated, especially by astronauts. That's the case. Fascination is a very positive movement in the brain. If you are fascinated, you might be inspired. And even further on, you might have some motivation to do also something. It must not be in space. As I said, I'm a civil engineer. So I was inspired, fascinated by Sputnik, inspired by Apollo, and then motivated to do something. And I said, okay, for me, space will never be reachable. So I took that one. So therefore, this is the basic idea. And in addition, I can say the Moonvillage is a bridge over troubled water. There was a famous song of Simon and Garfunkel, Bridge Over Troubled Water. And we know that we have right now also very troubled water. And my hope is that space and Moonvillage is also helping across all these troubles in water. Thank you very much for your attention. Just to tell you, it's not done with artificial intelligence. This is still handmade, so to say. You see it with artificial intelligence would be better, but I did it yesterday and I thought it's a good picture. And these are real pictures of all three guys, so it's interesting. Okay, so if you have questions or comments, or you can even shout against me, I'm ready. I'm old enough to stay. So please, I don't know how we do. Throw the microphone, or what do you do?
Yes, please, with the microphone. Thank you very much. It was more than expected.
Time-wise.
Let's build the Moonvillage.
Time-wise, you mean?
Thanks for coming on behalf of the TU.
Okay.
And also I have to thank you on behalf of the Stadt Wien, because they have also supported it. I would invite my youngest guests. Yes. sorry, but...
Hello. My question was, because we are working on a moon greenhouse, but our question was for you, what do you think it would bring for us people on Earth, like in the medication field, for example? And we did some research today and we found some very interesting stuff, so we would like to know what's for you the most interesting about it.
Okay, so space had also some side effects. Teflon pan does not come from space. But for instance, the astronaut suits, they are measuring everything, the heartbeat, blah, blah, blah. And therefore, for, you know, the early child death, sometimes small babies suddenly die. And there are now some special body suits for babies, which are endangered by this sudden child death, and this comes directly from space. And so I could give you a long list of activities. For me, medical experiments are especially in low Earth orbit, because microgravity is even a stronger change. So the body behaves in microgravity much stronger. But whenever you go to another place, you learn something how to behave over there, and this will bring you some fundamental understanding of living, of your body and whatever back. So there are a lot of aspects. So what they had in the International Space Station was osteoporosis. So then eye pressure, because they always have some eye pressure problems, the astronauts. So there are a lot of things which they learned in microgravity conditions, and some of them will also be on the moon. That's a very important point which you raised, that I'm not looking for a settlement on the moon where people go to the moon to die there or to stay there forever. It should be just for short-term visit, some weeks, some months, like in the Antarctica or in the Arctic region, just to stay there for research, for examinations. I don't see it directly for tourists, because launches are not the cleanest thing of the world. But I see it for research of different fields. The moon can be important, especially also for as I said, from the far side to look to other stars, etc. But also for the body, for the humans, I'm sure there will be some new understandings. Anyhow, I can hear you are close enough.
For this inspiring talk, the second stage of the line you suggested. I would be interested in your opinion about these two opposing ways of getting forward to the moon, like the Gateway versus the Starship. What would you think, with your expertise knowledge, is more promising and efficient?
Yeah, the question sounds simple, but the question is complicated. When in something like 2010 or so 15 years ago might be, we had a discussion whether we should have also a transportation capability from Europe for astronauts. That was not because of looking to Russia or the Americans for not transporting us. It was because of technical redundancy, because we said it might happen something to the American launcher, and it happened with the shuttle, or something may happen to Soyuz, and we had it also in the past that there was an issue with Soyuz. So that was an issue. Now, with Starship or for Lunar Gateway, personally, I would love to see the Lunar Gateway really as a Lunar Gateway, because then we have also, as Europeans, the access with European Service Module towards the Gateway, from the Gateway on the moon, some rovers, etc. So it would be much better for Europe. But if Americans decide not to do it, then I have a plan B, which is not bad. That means taking the Lunar Gateway close to the Earth and have it as an Earth gateway. Therefore, personally, I would love to see the Lunar Gateway. but I cannot tell you what is the probability of one or the other, because with Elon Musk and Trump, probability are not the right numbers.
I'm really wondering, do we have the technology to build the Moonvillage?
Yes.
And is it a technological or political challenge?
We have the technology. We have even more than we need. That's strange. Huh? We have now at ESA also the capacity to use the regolith, the moon material, and either to sinter it with sun to really melt it together, or to use a very small part of resin, and then I'm coming back to me as a civil engineer, then we have concrete. Concrete doesn't mean cement, water, and aggregates. Concrete means to have some aggregates, some material, and the binding material. So we can use very small part of resin, bring that to the moon, take the regolith, bake it together, and we have perfect material. So we can build the Moonvillage immediately. We need, in addition, a launching pad, yeah, but a launching pad, Apollo, they had their launching pad, they brought it with them. So it's also possible. No, I believe we could start to build a Moonvillage tomorrow in Cologne. ESA is testing a lot of technologies in that. And there they have also a part of regolith, etc., in a special room. And they have also a small control center where they control everything. So yes, we have the technology, and I'm sure we will do even better when we do it.
I have the question about if it also accelerates the building of European spaceports.
Another question? No. You see, ESA has a very smart convention written in 1975. It says exclusively peaceful purpose. It doesn't say, it doesn't exclude military activities. It doesn't say only civil. It says exclusively peaceful purposes. And I can live with this sentence very, very well. However, what we see right now is that some people believe we should have also some acting force, space force in the space, so even also for offensive activities. Personally, I'm not at all happy with that. I'm sad that I'm not the Director General of ESA any longer, because I would fight against it. But the situation, the discussion is changing quite dramatically right now. And of course, some people might take the moon also as a basis for something like that. I hope it will not happen. And we should not announce it to anybody, because if the idea is on the table, they will do it. So be quiet, don't say it. I hope it will never be done. We should use space as something which belongs to the whole world, and not only to our world, but to the whole universe. And therefore, we should be very careful, but trying to have a national dominance, or whatever you call it, in space. We should not. We should exclusively peaceful purposes. Full stop.
Hello. I was wondering, when you were talking about having a mix of private and public partners, I was just wondering how that relates to your vision of like the purpose of a Moonvillage, which you then later clarified as something that is, you know, done for research purposes to kind of like figure out and like for the whole of all humanity. But then the commercial partners that you mentioned by name are, you know, US tech billionaires, and like they might have very different interests. So how do you navigate those kind of potentially competing interests?
I should not work in front of you. Huh? First of all, I would not navigate it a lot. But you see, on Earth, we have companies which are developing some robots. We have also universities building robots. Obviously, both are developing something, it works. So if industry is doing something there commercially, they should do it. And they could, for instance, say, okay, we will bring a plant on the moon which gets the water out of the crust and producing hydrogen and oxygen for launchers. That could be a commercial activity. It must not be an activity of a public institution. So there are so many things one could do in a village, in a city, even in Vienna. You have everything combined. You have universities, not of course one special, but you have some universities. They are doing something, companies are doing something, and they are working together. I don't see any issue with it. And I don't see a regulation necessary for that. It should never be harmful for the others. That's the basic regulation which should be there. And if they earn money by that, why not?
Hello, here?
Yeah, it's always for me, because the microphone does not have a...
I have more questions. I'm trying to aggregate them into one. So I'm interested in the operational aspect of the Moonvillage, and how do you see that functioning? Would it be a centralized or a decentralized system, or a combination of both? And how would you see the allocation, the automatic allocation of resources and other...
Yeah, that's a good, all questions are good, but that's a difficult question. I'm not in favor of anarchy in general. However, I believe also in the power of individuals and individual institutions or individual people. So therefore, I hope that we don't need a new regulation which defines each and everything over there and saying, as I said, there is a Lord Mayor and something like that. I hope we don't need it. Let's try a new society on the surface of the moon, which is balanced, which is equality, which is all positive aspects we would always like to have on Earth. There we can try it very easily. Let's do it. Peaceful, etc. And I'm not looking for a special hierarchy on the surface of the moon. But maybe I'm wrong. No, it's not working.
Okay. Hello, good evening. Thank you so much for your talk, and it was very inspirational. I was wondering, we were talking about the quote from Hawking, and I'm coming more out of the science fiction point of view. Do you think, not now, but maybe in 100 or 200 years, it would be possible that people seek refuge on another planet? And my other question related to that is, how many people could live in a moon village in a self-sufficient?
Okay, so the word is multiplanetary species. That's always what is said. Now, if you know the movie Interstellar, which is one of my favorite, there they were traveling first, I think, to Jupiter. Huh? They were traveling to Jupiter, and from there they found a possibility to go into another universe, into other areas. So if we find something like that is possible, why not do it? We could do it. However, as you know from Interstellar, not all came back, only one. But so it's a possibility, but it should not be that we are looking for that because we are destroying our Earth. Maybe the other way around, if we have our Earth cleaned up and did everything fine, then we could travel to show it also to other species in the universe. That would be a much better reason for me. But it may happen, and now, but I don't know when, because technology is far away from that. Even TRAPPIST-1 is close, but not reachable. And can you imagine that you travel, you are very young, you would like to travel to a place which takes about 200 years. That means not only your kids, but your grandkids, your grand-grandkids, your grand-grand-grand-grandkids could reach there, and you are just on the travel? Difficult, huh? So we need different technologies for that. Moonvillage, no link, no restriction about the number, but maybe if we have something like 50 to 100, that would be already a big number, a great number, but no limitation. If they are coming more and doing some fruitful and good work, fine.
Yeah. Hi. Here.
Okay, excuse me, but...
Thank you for your presentation. I have a bit more of a technical question regarding creating a safe atmospheric environment for the inhabitants. So you mentioned that a pure oxygen environment is not beneficial because of the spontaneous combustion. For example, nitrogen is important in our atmosphere because it dilutes the oxygen, but also because of the plants to create proteins. So how would nitrogen be introduced into a moon village or a Martian base? Because it's really present on Earth and not really on Mars or the moon. So will we ever be free of the Earth, or how would the nitrogen be provided?
I have no idea. But yeah, but to bring nitrogen, if I understood it correctly, to bring nitrogen also to the moon might be possible with some tanker, so to say. So you have no natural source for that. There is a little bit of nitrogen also in the crust of moon, but not enough maybe for to really have an atmosphere like that. So therefore, but the Apollo missions always had a mixture of nitrogen and oxygen. So that's clear. Only Apollo 1 was only oxygen, but the other ones were always mixed. I have no idea about that. I'm just a civil engineer. Now I have a good apology. But therefore, we need people like you to develop that question and not raise the question, but to find solutions. Okay, I don't see it.
Hi. Okay, hi. Earlier you said something about using regolith for concrete, and I was wondering, what do you think about using inflatable structures for building some living possibilities or research possibilities on the moon, and also what do you think, how important would be the use of textile technologies, for example, like reinforcing the concrete with fibers?
Yeah, so again, my serious answer is, it's you who developed that. I mean, I'm your future. You don't understand that, but I tell you, I'm 71, so you will be someday 71, so I'm your future. Use your future until you are as old as I'm right now, and you are my past. I was as young as you, even if you cannot believe it. So on the moon, you can use inflatable structures. You need only very small pressure because you have more or less vacuum around. So that's an advantage. So you need only very, very tiny parts of gas. Yes, and the idea was always to use also inflatable structures and then cover it with regolith, because you need something against the radiation. The radiation on the moon is much stronger than on Earth because the Van Allen belt is not around the moon. So therefore, to use regolith also as a shielding material for radiation on the surface of the moon is important. The same holds true if you look for reinforced concrete, yeah? Reinforced concrete. On Earth, we do it with steel or with carbon fibers or glass fibers. On the moon, we could use, for instance, also with regolith and resin or regolith, sintered regolith, we could use also normal glass fibers which are not resistant against alkali medium, because you don't have any alkali situation. So therefore, it would be much cheaper, and you could use textiles, woven material, or whatever. There are different ideas to use it. But also, if you use arched structures, you might not need so much reinforcement, because you can use the compression as a the load-carrying material.
Hello. Here. Thank you for the presentation. I have two questions. The first question is, on Earth, you have cycles for everything, water cycle, nitrogen cycle, and everything, which is not present on the moon. So ultimately, you're looking at a law of diminishing returns where you use the resources, but there's nothing replacing it. And finally, you fight over smaller and smaller portions of resources. How do you navigate
I did not
this
get
situation?
that. Can you repeat? I didn't get the question. Excuse me. I'm old.
There are no cycles on the moon to replace resources. So on Earth, you have the water cycle where water evaporates and then falls back onto the Earth. You have nitrogen cycles.
Yes.
This is not there on the moon. So in the end, you are fighting over a smaller and smaller amount of resources, and how do you navigate this?
But look to the International Space Station. Huh? The International Space, if you are counting the water you need each and every day, it's about 100 liters each and every day. Yeah? Unfortunately. Shower, drinking, toilet, blah, blah, blah. 100 liters per day. And this is in a big circulation on the Earth. It goes into the river, and from the river to the sea, and from the sea to the clouds, and comes back, and you can again drink it or whatever. On ISS, The astronauts are using only 5 liters per day, 5 fresh liters of water per day. The rest is also in circulation. So that means the coffee of today is the coffee of yesterday, and even the day before yesterday. So that means we have already, for an ISS, coming back to the question earlier, we have already a technology which we are using in a closed circulation, and we can use it, of course, also in the Moonvillage, of course. So it's possible. You had a second one. I hope I can understand that one.
A question again about public-private partnerships. You said that this Moonvillage is actually a very high-level architecture, and suppose a company wants to start developing some kind of technology to enable this Moonvillage. Without harder requirements, we would not know what to start with. Like, do you want oxygen at 99% purity or 90% purity? Or if you want aluminum at 100% purity, what do we start developing with?
Yeah.
Without these requirements, it's
what
hard
I find interesting with your question is, it's not the first time that I hear it. And the interesting thing is that we heard it several times from young people. And I was surprised, because as a young student, as a young boy, I would never ask for any regulation to do something. I would always say, let's do it. Yeah? And therefore, I hope that you are all bright enough and smart enough not to make the same nonsense which was done the last 50, 60 years here and there, and even with regulations was done. Think about asbestos and other things. I hope that you are smarter than that, and you don't need these strict regulations. Go for it positively. I know it's trivial, it's naive what I'm saying, but better naive and lucky than always over-regulated and sorry.
Hey, thank you for the lecture. Here.
Yeah.
You talked a lot about the Americans and the Russians and the Europeans. And could you also give your opinion on the Chinese space program? Maybe
yes,
regarding the advances and possible future collaborations?
For me, the Earth is also a village in a different sense. And I'm personally always interested in having links also on Earth with all the different countries in different ways, considering some aspects over here and over there, but not to strictly stop at an early beginning. I still have relations to friends in Russia. I still have it, and I will continue with it. I don't stop just because of this stupid and cruel war in Ukraine. And the same holds true for other countries. We have at ESA, we told our astronauts, learn Chinese. Who knows? Maybe we can do something together. I tried in several of public meetings, and I was criticized for that several times. Piero knows it. I was proposing, let's open the hatches for Chinese and Indians. I mean, not really open, you understand that. But let's come them in. And the Americans said, no, we can't do that because of a decision of the Congress or Senate, I don't know. We should not close everything. Of course, there are some IP problems here and there and some cultural problems, but there is science. Science has a soft power, and we should use it. Cooperation is really the power of science, and we should use it beyond national borders, even beyond politics. That's, for me, very important. And I remember when we were together in Beijing, IAC in Beijing, some people from North Korea asked the ESA staff, can we have a discussion with your DG, Director General? And they said, Mr. Wörner, don't do it. North Korea, ooh. I said, why the hell? They have legs, they have arms, they have a brain. I should talk with them. I discussed with him. I can tell you nothing came out, what was really important, but I'm really believing if we always close everything on our border, national border or continental border or whatever, then we are lost on Earth at the end of the day. The climate change is a global endeavor. It's not a local endeavor. It's not a national endeavor. And so peace is a global endeavor. We don't have it. We have, what was I reading? 100 wars at the same time or something like that right now. But we should fight against it and not put new walls between countries. It's naive again, but it's positive.
to follow on somewhat to the previous question, I am an American, retired from NASA many years, and I will say, first of all, what a wonderful pleasure it is to see so much interest in space in Vienna. It's a great thing, and it shows our common interest around the world. Cooperation is a wonderful thing, and of course, we see some of the amazing benefits from cooperation. The project I worked on, James Webb Space Telescope, with ESA, of course, who did this wonderful launch for us, and we have amazing things. But I contrast that with, I'm embarrassed to say, comments from the acting NASA administrator a few months ago, paraphrase, we're going back to the moon to claim it for ourselves and our partners. Of course, this runs completely contrary to the Moon Agreement and the spirit of Vienna. America, it seems, is very good at space when we are under threat. It is different from having a measured position and talking with everyone and deciding what to do logically. But this is the environment we are in. We're seeing this threat from the Chinese and starting to mobilize, somewhat like Sputnik, except we see it coming now closer and closer. How do you square this wonderful spirit of cooperation with what it seems to be the current environment, that the only motivating factor is the competition and perhaps a property claim?
Competition is a driver. Who would run 100 meters under 10 seconds without competition? So competition is a driver. Excellent, good. Also, this race in space had its good part because they were speeding up. But cooperation, as you correctly said, cooperation is an enabler. With cooperation, we can do things we can't do alone. When I had my very first meeting, I mentioned already what I said when I met the NASA administrator concerning the moon. I asked him, dear Mike, we would love to be part of your mission here and there. And he said, yes, Jan, you can do. If you have a camera on board, you can have a camera on board. I said, no, we would like to have something where without our contribution, the mission would fail. So we would like to be on the critical path. At that time, I'm talking now about 2007, it was not really possible. It was not possible. They said, no, that's not possible. Meanwhile, with the European Service Module for the Orion, without the European Service Module, Orion cannot fly. And James Webb and other parts where the Europeans also brought in some special activities, some special products. So I'm in favor of cooperation. I like competition. And it's how to solve it for the future is just to discuss, to be open, to discuss, to be open, to discuss, and to have personal relations. That's very important, beyond all contracts, etc., to try to have a personal relation with the different people. As I said, with Russia, I have it still. I have it also with the US. I had yesterday, I met a former NASA guy you might even know, John Horek. I met him yesterday in Germany, in Cologne. So I have these relations, and I believe this is so fine to have relations across borders. Yes, and by the way, I also agree what you said. It's fine that so many people here are here, which are obviously interested also in space, and I can just recommend you, go your way, go forward, look to nice projects, and find also partners in the whole world. That's my really request to you. I don't like that old people are doing requests, but this is a request I have. Please.
So thank you, first of all, for the insightful comments and answers to the previous questions. My question will be more of a technical one. Going back to the Lunar Gateway idea, where do you see the merit of such a station over a direct flight over to the moon? Because if we bring the fuel for the shuttle from the station to the moon, then we might as well just land directly. And
okay.
I mean, then it's only feasible if we manufacture the propellants locally on the moon so that the orbit trips are free, so to say.
Yeah. So I'm not sure whether I got the whole question correctly, but the Lunar Gateway has a big advantage for several things. It's a stepping stone also to go to the moon, so that means astronauts can fly to that place and then plan the descent to the surface of the moon. They can also control rovers on the surface of the moon much better than from Earth because of the latency and so on. So there are a lot of reasons to have the Lunar Gateway, and therefore, as I said, I'm very much in favor. But if it's not realized and direct flies to the moon, we lose a little bit of this competence, and we cannot do the same in direct flies. So therefore, from my point of view, to use the Lunar Gateway is a good thing, and let's hope that it can be realized beyond political problems we might face.
We have last questions over there. One last question. Yes, please. You have the mic. Yeah.
As I understood, this project is not started yet, and I wanted to know what are the main problems, but what are the main obstacles that needs to be resolved so that it can be started?
With the Moonvillage?
Yes.
The Moonvillage is a fact. It's not a vision any longer. It's a fact because Artemis is a fact. The gateway planning is a fact. Several moon missions where different nations are going to the moon, also private companies. This is different to the time 50 years ago. So to say, the founding part of the Moonvillage is done, even so they don't say, we are part of the Moonvillage. It's done. And also, if on Earth a village is founded, they not say the first, I'm now a villager. They don't say it. They do something, and that's part of the village. So therefore, I believe the Moonvillage, in its very first steps, is realized, is there. I'm not saying I have to live for another 100 years. I can say it's over, it's fine for me, it's done.
Thank you very much. On behalf of the Academy for Continued Education at TU Wien, I would love to say thank you to you, Professor Wörner, but also thank you very much to Dr. Sandra Häuptling-Meusburger. She's the Academic Director of our Executive MBA, Space Architecture and Management, and it was her who organized this open lecture today. So thank you, Sandra. And I would like to give the mic to you for the very last words, maybe together with Professor Wörner. And have a good evening from the Academy.
Thank you. I have not a lot to say. I have to thank you. I have to thank all of you. And I would like to refer to what you said. If you're interested in space, the TU Wien is the university. We have lots of different faculties working already on research projects and educational projects. So it's the right university. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much to all of you.